G'day guys, Justin here, coming at you with what is going to be a several part series on a topic that I've sort of been getting at in the past few weeks in some of my videos, particularly getting at it on my Twitter, and that is LeBron's tarnished legacy. There seems to be some disconnection between facts and reality and what people are perceiving as far as LeBron's legacy and career is concerned. A lot of people seem to think that he's consistently making these finals has been a good thing for him, or that there hasn't been any negatives in the guy's career, or that if there has been some negatives, they're certainly not his fault. Well, as we'll see through this first video, which is going to be part one as of several parts as mentioned, you'll find that LeBron is certainly to blame for a lot of it, more than he isn't to be blamed for. So again, let's have a look at it. LeBron's tarnished legacy, the definitive story of LeBron's career shortcomings, part one. My aim in this video is very simple. I'll be covering the first 4 seasons of his career. Throughout these slides and throughout this video, I will be explaining the scenarios where LeBron had to stand up as a leader of the team. There are situations where he obviously did stand up, and those certainly do deserve the credit they can get. But the amount of times where LeBron actually failed to stand up is also going to be pointed out. And explaining these scenarios where he didn't stand up are going to be fairly easy to do because they're fairly evident as well. And I'm also going to explain why he fell short when it mattered. I'm not just going to say, okay, he didn't stand up here. I'm going to explain why he fell short. I'm going to do that using circumstantial evidence, different facts and different stats to prove a point. Again, a lot of people have been giving LeBron a pass for his early years in his career, but then a lot of people have been claiming him to be the best player in the league for the best part of 10 years. Meanwhile, also using that argument, also claiming that, but he was young when a lot of these things happened. Well, unfortunately for people, you can't have one and not the other. So although he may have been the best player in the league from the age of 20, 21 years old, you can't then use the excuse that, but he was losing those series, he was only 20. Sometimes you've got to be accountable for what you do. I mean, look at Michael Jordan. Jordan, come 86, 87, was probably the best all-around player in the NBA. He certainly was by 87, 88. But I mean, there are no excuses there. He did have poor supporting cast. LeBron also had poor supporting casts. Michael did go out with it, went out firing, and he did chase the chance of actually winning playoff series and getting through and trying to win, series to get to the finals, to win championships. And unfortunately, there are just some circumstances here where LeBron didn't do that. Again, using circumstantial evidence, facts and stats to prove it, I'll show you what I mean. So we'll begin with the 2003-2004 NBA season. This would be LeBron's rookie season, and it would also be the final year of hand checking. So this was the last year where defenders could actually put a hand on you and guide you and steer you and physically alter your ability to play the game. I mean, as we look here, his numbers in the final year of hand checking, albeit his rookie year: 20.9 points per game, 5.5 rebounds per game, and 5.9 assists per game. For everyone who knows what LeBron's career averages are, which is essentially 27, 7, and 7, those numbers are down. 1.6 steals and 0.7 blocks and 3.5 turnovers. That's about par for the course for his career as well. But again, you want to look at the field goal percentage here: 41.7% from the field. Huge difference to a guy who's shooting over 50% now for his career. 29% from deep. Again, big difference to his normal career. And I mean, as of recent, he has been putting up 38% shooting from deep, and 75.4 from the stripe. That's about par for the course for LeBron. But again, it must be pointed out, his rookie season was the last year of hand checking, so quite a difference in the way defenses played LeBron for the rest of his career. Just a quick season summary for 2003-2004, and that's that Cleveland finished 1 game off the 8th seed. Only 1. Unfortunately though, they did have an opportunity to get to the 8th seed. Boston had the 8th seed, but Cleveland, however, did not win the regular season series at 3-1 Boston's favour. Had it been 2-2, then again would have been going through tiebreakers, and I think Cleveland may have had the advantage there. But either way, as we look at it there, they finished one game off the 8th seed, and in their final 15 games, unfortunately, they went 4-11. So you can only imagine, had they even tried to have, broken 7-8 or 8-7 on that last 15 games, they make the playoffs with ease, and Boston isn't a factor. 3 of those games that they did lose in that final 15 were to teams Phoenix, Philadelphia, and Toronto. All 3 teams would finish the season with less wins than Cleveland. And throughout this run, and throughout, I believe it was the 15 games, I believe it was either the last 15 games or in those 3 particular games, LeBron's points, rebounds, assists, field goal percentage, and free throw percentage all dropped. Okay, so it was in those 3 games. His points, rebounds, assists, field goal percentage, and free throw percentage all dropped, and his turnovers increased. Again, this is certainly something that wasn't an anomaly for LeBron's career, and I don't believe it's something that is going to dissipate as we go through this video. So as we look at some of these key games, first game we'll look at is Cleveland versus Phoenix from the 23rd of March 2004. Now, just some quick facts for you. Cleveland won just 29 games on the season. This was a season where Amari was also injured throughout. Steve Nash wouldn't join the team until the following season, and in that season they jumped from 29 wins to 62 wins. Steve Nash had become an MVP. Again, I am mentioning this is the last season. I'm talking about Hero 304, where hand checking was allowed, so you guys can do some calculations from there. Stephen Marbury had also been traded to New York. So at this point in the game, Stephen Marbury wasn't even on that Suns team. He was gone. Didn't play in this game. So let's have a look at how the game went. LeBron managed only 6 first half points, and the Cavs were trailing by 19 at the main break. There was no resurgence. They lost the game by 17. Sean Marion, yes, was playing on this team, and at the point was pretty much, certainly one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. Again, with hand checking allowed. Now, it needs to be remembered that Marion would be a perennial or defensive candidate throughout the rest of his career, minus the hand checking, but does show you what a hell of a difference it makes. In a good way, mind you. Defense was obviously, tougher to play against. But again, LeBron managed just 6 first half points, and the Cavs were down by 19. Again, he was a rookie, 18, 19 years old. But at the same time, you've got to try and make a mark and make a stand, particularly against a team that managed just 29 games on the season. Big, big difference. Again, LeBron was not able to stand up when it mattered. With only 6 first half points, with a side that had no Stephen Marbury, who had been traded, no Steve Nash, who wasn't on the team to the next year, and Amari had been injured throughout that season. He was playing in this game, he had been injured throughout that season. 6 first half points, only to trail at 19 at the main break and lose by 17. And one of the 3 key games that cost the Cavs a playoff berth. So as we look at the next key game, this one was against Philadelphia, the very next game actually, on March 26, 2004. Now, in this game, it must be noted that Allen Iverson didn't play, and he was the leading scorer for the Sixers, and neither did Glenn Robinson, who at that point was their second leading scorer. He was out injured for the rest of the season. The scoring load instead was then carried by Kenny Thomas and John Salmons for the Philadelphia 76ers. And it must be noted that Thomas himself averaged 13.6 points a game on the season, while Salmons averaged 5.8 points a game on the season. With both players with both players averaging a mighty 9.3 points per game on their career. These were the 2 people that led the scoring for Philadelphia in that game, with 22 and 19 apiece. Again, no Allen Iverson and no Glenn Robinson, the 2 primary scorers for Philadelphia that season. Instead, Kenny Thomas and John Salmons, guys who averaged 13.6 and 5.8 a game that season, and a mighty 9.3 for their career, carried the scoring load. Now, you'd think, oh, well, geez, Sixers should have, certainly shouldn't have won that game. LeBron should have stepped up as a rookie. Didn't happen. LeBron managed just 16 points. He was outscored by both of them. He managed just 16, and the Cavs lost by 15. That's a tremendous blip on the radar, particularly when you want to look at the fact that Cleveland missed the 8th seed by a game. Now imagine if they beat the 29-win Suns and they beat Philadelphia. Back-to-back games. She's over. They're in the playoffs. Just didn't happen, did it? And we finally look at the last game on April 6, 2004 versus Toronto. And that's a photo from the game. Maybe Vince Carter's just reminding him that it doesn't matter. In another 13, 14 years' time, I'm still going to be pushing your stuff in, so to speak, and proving to you that even at 40 years old, I can still outplay you. So again, Cleveland versus Toronto, April 6, 2004. LeBron shot under 30% from the field on the game. He was 1 of 4 from the field in the 4th quarter, and the Cavs lost by a point. Now, I don't know what's worse, the fact that he only made 1 shot in the 4th, or the fact that he only took 4 shots in the 4th. This is his team to lead. I understand he's a rookie, but it's his team to lead. They lost by 1. And to make it even worse, Cleveland led at the end of the 3rd. How do you lead at the end of the 3rd quarter, knowing that they're hot on your heels? It was only a 2-point lead. And you then only take 4 shots and make 1 of them in the 4th and lose by a point? Again, how do you lose to the 29-win Suns with no Steve Nash yet, and certainly no Stephen Marbury? You then lose to Philadelphia without Allen Iverson, their leading scorer, Glenn Robinson, their 2nd leading scorer, and instead get torched by Kenny Thomas and John Salmons. Then you come up against Toronto, you shoot under 30% from the field, and you go 1 of 4 in the 4th and lose by a point? No, that's just unacceptable. I don't care whether you're a rookie, I don't care whether you're a veteran. There's just no excuse for it. And as noted here, had the Cavs won 2 of these 3 easily winnable games, because that's what they were, easily winnable games, they would have knocked Boston to the 9th seed. They make the playoffs. It didn't happen. Again, a blip on the radar of LeBron James and his tarnished legacy. So then we move into the 2004-05 NBA season. The first season in which hand-checking was removed and the freedom of movement initiative era of the NBA began. How did it begin? Steve Nash won 2 consecutive MVPs. Now, that must also be noted that even though he has grown from his rookie season, and you do expect a bit of development, there was a great deal of development. His points, his rebounds, his assists, his steals, his field goal percentage, and his 3-point percentage all grew, and his turnover numbers lowered. Again, I understand that he's not a rookie anymore and he has grown a little bit. He's probably put on a bit of muscle mass and his IQ's improved, but tremendous jump here. 27.2 points per game, 7.4 rebounds per game, 7.2 assists. He automatically starts putting up his career averages in his 2nd season. Big difference. Steals grew as well, as mentioned, 2.2 steals, 0.7 blocks, 3.3 turnovers. His field goal percentage jumped 6 points, 47.2% from the field, 35.1% from deep. It's a huge improvement. And 75% from the stripe, sitting at par for his career. Massive, massive difference. Again, the freedom of movement initiative era of the NBA began with a bang, and it wasn't just for Steve Nash's 2 MVPs. Now, if we look at the season summary for the Cavs and LeBron James, Cleveland finished the 9th seed again, but this time they were tying the Nets with a 42-40 record, above 500, and tied and finished 9th on a split of the regular season. And the Nets won the regular season series 3-1, and they won their 3 games by, I believe it was 31-6-2, or 13 points a game. Big difference there for the Cavs-Nets games. The big three of Jason Kidd, Vince Carter and Richard Jefferson not once played a game together. 2 games for Kidd and Carter and 2 games for Kidd and Jefferson. It must also be noted that in the series versus the Nets, his numbers declined from his regular season averages. He played below par in these games. It's funny how Vince Carter seems to have always had a hand in some poor LeBron James performances somewhere along the line. So again, as we go along here, Cleveland then went 5-7 in the month of April. Big difference when you look at the fact the Nets went 8-2. Cleveland played 2 more games and lost 5 more. Huge difference. Huge difference there. In fact, the deciding factor pretty much when you look at the fact that they had to split they had to split 42 and 40 with the fact that the Nets won their regular season series. It just makes you wonder. And then they also lost key games to Philadelphia. Again, New Jersey in this stretch. Must be pointed out, had they have beaten New Jersey in this stretch, they'd have been fine. And New York. Any one of those games, if they beat Philadelphia or they beat New York, they automatically go to 43-39. But had they beaten New Jersey, not only do they go 43-39 and get ahead by a game, but they also split the regular season series. And had the Nets finished with the same record, it wouldn't have mattered. They'd have won, Again, just another blip on the radar and something that a lot of people tend to ignore. So let's look at the key games. Here's a game back on the 22nd of December 2004, Cleveland versus New Jersey. It must be noted that in this game the Cavs only lost by 2, but with a great 4th quarter performance, LeBron had 5 points on 4 shots. They lost by 2. He also missed a key free throw and a go-ahead runner with less than 3 seconds remaining. Now, if he hits the go-ahead runner, that's all well and good. Wasn't to happen though. Unfortunately, Richard Jefferson had 17 points in the 4th quarter himself and hit the game-winning alley-oop. Now, if LeBron hits that runner, they go to OT. There's plenty of time in OT. However, it must be noticed that when they come out from the timeout, who took the game-winning shot? Certainly not LeBron James. It was Lucius Harris. Lucius Harris took the game-winning attempt for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, it must be pointed out that Lucius Harris had shot 14.3% from the field on the game, had 5 points, and 3 of those points came from the foul line. Going to suggest he's not the right guy to be taking that shot. Also going to suggest that it was up to the leader of that team, LeBron James, to take that shot. Again, shying away in the big moments. Something that people notice a hell of a lot more throughout his career. But that is a key game. Again, that was their most winnable game other than their win against the Nets. They had a 6-point game there as well. Which I also should mention that the fact that on the game of February 27, they dropped the game by 6. So imagine if they win this, they win the game that they dropped by 6. Well, all of a sudden it's a 3-1 series lead to Cleveland. We don't even need to talk about the fact that they performed poorly in April. They'd have been a playoff team. Again, 2 easy years where they should have been a playoff team and just simply couldn't deliver when it mattered. And thus didn't make the game and didn't make the series. Again, we talked about the game versus New York. I mean, here's just another point the fact that he went 7 for 25 versus New York and shot 28%. And in the fourth quarter alone, he shot 20%. He shot the air out of the ball. You don't mind if he shoots 50%. No, he had a fair crack. 20%, and they lose by 6 to New York. Another easily winnable game. And again, had Cleveland won this game versus New York, they would have qualified for the playoffs. We wouldn't even be worried about it. But he just didn't deliver. When it mattered, he didn't deliver. And for the second season in a row, in the regular season, the shortcomings occurred. The blip on the radar of his tarnished legacy, we had another one, and he just didn't deliver at the crunch end of the regular season. So it didn't matter what he did after that. He could go to, the FIBA Americas, he could go do whatever he wanted. It didn't mean diddly, because he didn't deliver when it mattered for his team. So we move on now, and we move on to the 2005-2006 season. Finally, LeBron would crack the curse and enter the playoffs. Finally delivering. I believe it was the third seed for the Cavs. This would be his first season over 30 points a game. Again, realised he's going to kick that scoring up for this team to deliver. And thankfully he did. Again, it's been a gripe on LeBron, the fact that he doesn't want to score the basketball when it matters. And finally, he scored and delivered when it mattered. And personally, this would be the season where he was the best. First season, he was by far the best player in the game on both ends of the floor. Guy was a beast. Young LeBron compared to now, it's no contest. Smarter now, better player back then. Again, it's quite evident in the numbers. But again, the first playoff appearance for LeBron, leading his Cavs. First season over 30 points per game, really leading from the front. And his first season as the best all-around player in the league. Quite a coming out party for LeBron James, had it not been for the season before. So we'll go ahead and we'll just look at a quick season summary. LeBron would lead the Cavs to the third seed in the East. He would also raise his level of play in the first round of the playoffs versus Washington. He went from, I think it was 31 points a game to near 36 points a game. Tremendous effort against Washington. However, he lowered his production from both the regular season and the first round versus Washington in his losing series versus Detroit. He went from pretty much 36 a game to 26 a game. His field goal percentage went through the floor. But it was interesting to note that during this period, while his scoring numbers and percentile numbers dropped, he then began protecting his numbers, piling on the assists and piling on the boards. This is something you need to take note of as a fan and something people don't pay attention to. This is a guy who wasn't scoring a ball, he wasn't playing efficiently, so to make it look like it wasn't necessarily his job and that it wasn't his fault, he decided to take it upon himself to grab more rebounds and pass the ball more. When you're having a season over 30 a game and you're having a playoff run in the first round which is 35 a game, you then decide to go back into a shell at 26 a game, that's on you, buddy. That's a bad drop in points. That production's on you. We'll look at the key games. I mean, as we headed into Game 6 of the Eastern Conference semi-finals, May 19, 2006, Cleveland versus Detroit. The Cavs entered the game with a 3-2 series lead. Now, this is the same Detroit Pistons team that took the San Antonio Spurs to Game 7 of the previous year's finals. These were the Pistons on the very last legs of their defense, and certainly a team that by no means was still the most feared team in the league. They certainly had their flaws, and teams were starting to notice it. But again, they blew a 3-2 series lead. They entered this game wanting to close the series out. A lot of people go, oh, but LeBron was only young. Oh, but it was the Detroit Pistons. Yes, but the Detroit Pistons were more or less on the downside of their, well, very much on the downside of their run. And again, Cleveland were up 3-2 in the series going into this game. They only had to win this game to move on to the conference finals, which would have been an epic contest between Shaq, D-Wade and LeBron. Would have been one of the more anticipated series, certainly of the last 20 years. It just didn't happen though, did it? They blew a 3-2 series lead, and LeBron shot 40% from the field on the game, 20% from three-point land on the game. And to go with 7 turnovers, they lost by 2 points. All LeBron had to do was shoot 50%, and they win that game. All he had to do was control the basketball, and they win that game. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. They choked. LeBron choked. Game 6, all they had to do was win and move on to the conference finals. It just didn't happen. It was his for the taking. He let someone walk by and grab it. Totally unacceptable. I don't care about his age. I don't care the fact that he was 21, 22. 20, 21, 22. The matter of fact is that they were up 3-2 in the series, and they blow a series-clinching game. He helps blow a series-clinching game. He shoots 40% from the field and 20% from deep and turns the ball over 7 times in a 2-point loss. Unacceptable from the leader of the team, and more than unacceptable, downright deplorable for the best player in the league. And then as we head to it, the Cavs needing to win Game 7. The Pistons needing to win Game 7, do or die. This is clutch. This is where you need to deliver, and it simply didn't happen. At no point did it look like it was going to happen. Cleveland versus Detroit, Game 7, the 2006 Eastern Conference Semi-Finals, May 21st, 2006. Cleveland was held to 61 points on the game. Again, Detroit was on the downside of their run at this point. Still capable, but certainly on the downside of their run. The Cavs were only down 2 points at the half, only to be blown out and lose the game by 18, whilst, as I said, only scoring 61 points. And just for some perspective, after being down just 2 at the half, and certainly more than in the game, LeBron would score just 6 points in the second half on 11.1%. Now, that's not to discredit his first half abilities. I mean, the first half he had 21 points, 5 rebounds on 66.7% from the field. That's tremendous. That's a great opening half. I mean, he keeps up that pace at the very least. You would have expected him to finish with a high 30 number, 40 or more. But he just wasn't able to deliver. And again, he got locked down for 6 points on 11.1% shooting in the second half. The Cavs got held to just 61 points on his number, on his dime, 61 points on his dime, and they were only down 2 at the half and lost by 18. Huge blip on the radar of LeBron James's tarnished legacy. If you can find an excuse for scoring just 61 points in a game, being down 2 and losing by 18, and only scoring 6 in the second half on essentially 11%, you're out of your mind. There is no way that's excusable. Again, another blip on the radar of LeBron James's tarnished legacy. Then we move into the fabled 2006-2007 season. This would be LeBron's second straight playoff appearance, and it would also be his first NBA Finals appearance. Not bad for a guy who had only been at the very top of the league for 2 years and leading his team to the NBA Finals. But what happened? He led the Cavs to the second seed at 50 wins, I believe. 50 wins for the Cavs there. Straight to the NBA, mind you, to the NBA Finals. This was a side that certainly could play. Not only did they make the NBA Finals, but unfortunately they were swept out of the NBA Finals. LeBron would be defended by a 35-year-old Bruce Bowen throughout the series, and Tony Parker would win a Finals MVP in a series that included Tim Duncan and LeBron James. Tony Parker would win the Finals MVP. So let's break it down game by game. Game 1, June 7th, 2007 of the 2007 NBA Finals, Cleveland versus San Antonio. LeBron would come out and be outscored by the great Daniel Boobie Gibson, who would score 16 points. He would be equalled in scoring by Drew Gooden, who himself also scored 14 points. He'd shoot the ball at a clip of 25% and turn the ball over 6 times as the leader of this team. And Tony Parker would lead all comers with 27 points, and Game 1 undoubtedly would go to San Antonio. Again, to reiterate, in his first ever NBA Finals appearance, in his first game, and as the best all-around player in the game, the best player in the NBA, he was outscored by Daniel Boobie Gibson 16-14 and equalled in scoring by Drew Gooden at 14 points as well. He'd score at a rate of 25% and commit 6 turnovers, whilst letting Tony Parker, who mind you was certainly not the best player in that series, or shouldn't have been the best player in that series, considering Tim Duncan was also on that team, and let him score 27 points. Again, Game 1, San Antonio. Now, let's look at Game 2, Cleveland versus San Antonio, June 10th, 2007 NBA Finals. The Cavs were down 89-62, or 27 points at the end of the third quarter. Totally unexcusable as to how you can let a team be down 27 points in the NBA Finals. Now, LeBron did have 25 points on the game, but he also had 6 turnovers and shot at 42.9%. Couldn't control the ball, couldn't shoot efficiently, and wasn't able to lead his team. Again, must be pointed out, LeBron was guarded primarily by a 35-year-old Bruce Bowen in this series. Not a young Bruce Bowen, not a Defensive Player of the Year candidate Bruce Bowen, a 35-year-old Bruce Bowen. Again, Game 2 summarised at the fact that Cleveland was down 27 points at the end of the third, and despite putting 30 points up in the fourth quarter, which essentially didn't matter, they had to keep San Antonio completely scoreless, which wasn't going to happen. He also had 6 turnovers on 42.9% shooting. As the best player in the NBA and as the leader of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now as we head to Game 3. Cleveland versus San Antonio. At home, the Cavs. June 7th, 2007 NBA Finals. They would lose at home by just 3 points. LeBron with another standout performance. He had another 25-point game. Again, he's scoring pretty highly in these games. 39.1% from the field with 5 turnovers. No one is going to win a basketball game when the leader of their team, and as I said, the best player in the league, scores only 25 when they shoot under 40% from the field and turn the ball over 5 times. Now, I will give LeBron credit. He did have 12 fourth quarter points. He did try and rally the troops, but however, that's not good enough when you're only able to post 13 points through the first 3 quarters. This is a guy who was averaging 30 a game. This is a guy who was the best all-around player in the game, and he managed 13 points through 3 quarters of an NBA Finals game. He then missed the game-tying shot. So even when he tried to put him on his back, he still didn't deliver. So after his teammates bailed him out all throughout the game, they set the platform for him. He did pour in those last quarter points, that's great, but he didn't do it when the game could have been tighter. He didn't shoot at an efficient clip, and he missed the game-tying shot. But he was young, Justin. How can you use this? How can you be saying this? Simple. You can't claim him to be the best player in the league for the past 10 to 15 years and give him the excuse of age. It's very simple. It's quick maths. It's basic maths. He was the best player in the game. He was the leader of the Cavs. 1 + 1 is 2. You can't take 1 away and still have 2. Again, it's just a simple fact. LeBron was the best all-around player in the league, and he choked. Again, credit where it's due. 12 fourth quarter points, but he missed the game-tying shot, and his teammates did the rest of the work through the first 3 quarters because of his terrible shooting and poor efficiency with the basketball. And that's your summary for Game 3. Now, as we look at Game 4, they were swept away from the series, and despite scoring 24 points, he shot a dismal 33% with 6 turnovers. Again, everyone will go on about he had 13 four-quarter points, and they only lost by a point. Well, that's all very well and good, But he only had 11 points through the first 3 quarters. And when you're shooting 33% and turning the ball over 6 times, you're not going to win games of basketball. That is poor leadership. That's an inability to stand up in crunch time and an inability to stand up when it matters for your team. The leader of the Cleveland Cavaliers, the best all-around player in the game, LeBron James, was swept from the finals, and his stand-up performance in that game was 24 points on 33% shooting with 6 turnovers. That is totally inexcusable on all levels. And again, he had 13 points in the fourth quarter, great. Throughout the whole base of the game, the guy had 11 points. His team carried him there. LeBron did a hell of a lot of work to get the team there, but his teammates did a hell of a lot of support and provided a hell of a lot of help for the guy to get to where he needed to be. And he couldn't deliver when it mattered. So again, at the end of Game 4, Cleveland was swept from the series. He shot essentially 33% from the field and had 6 turnovers on the game. Absolute fail on the half of LeBron James, and certainly a blip on the radar of LeBron's tarnished legacy. And for those of you that don't believe me, well, here's a quick series summary for LeBron James. He became the only player in NBA Finals history to shoot under 40%, average under 40% shooting, and average 5 turnovers a game in a series. He shot 36.5% from the field and had 5.8 turnovers, which works out to 25 turnovers in 4 games. Sorry, 23. 18 and 5 is 23, yep. He had 23 turnovers in 4 games. He shot 36.5%. As the best player, all-around player in the NBA, you go to the NBA Finals and you pour in 22 points a game on 36.5% shooting and turn the ball over nearly 6 times a game. Completely unacceptable. He had the highest usage rate and highest usage percentage of any player to have played in all 4 games. So that's to have entered the court in at least all 4 games of the series. He also had the highest turnover percentage for Cleveland and of any starter for both teams, and had the 3rd worst offensive and defensive rating of any starter for both teams. There is a serious case to be made that LeBron James was the 8th best player, the 8th, not the 3rd, the 8th best player in those NBA Finals. A serious case. There is no excuse there that the leader of a team can shoot 36.5 from the field, turn the ball over 5.8 times a game, have the highest usage percentage and usage rate of any player, and then again also have the highest turnover rate and one of the poorest offensive and defensive ratings for the starters. Unexcusable. Who is it? Shannon Sharp, the guy off, FS1, says that LeBron went to the finals with 2 mop buckets, a squeegee, and a bar of soap. It's probably lucky he went with 2 mop buckets, a squeegee, and a bar of soap, because they were able to clean up the absolute mess that he left behind. The use and the idea that you can use the excuse of LeBron's age when arguing this stuff is totally unacceptable when you look at the fact LeBron James was the best all-around player in the game and has been considered the best all-around player in the game, as mentioned, for the last 10 to 15 years. How can there be an excuse of age when he puts in such a poor performance on the biggest stage? Unacceptable. Again, these are big blips on the radar of LeBron's tarnished legacy. And to summarise just what happened, here's the San Antonio summary. I've already mentioned that Bruce Bowen, at 35 years old, was the guy defending LeBron. But Tim Duncan, who at the time was arguably the 2nd best all-around player in the game of basketball, Tim Duncan's field goal percentage dropped by 10 from the regular season. The dude shot 54.6% in the regular season and dropped to 44.6% in the NBA Finals. And this is a team that still won 4-0 with their best player shooting 44.6%. And it should also be noted that Tony Parker would average 24.5 points per game on 56.8% shooting. Yes, that's right, more than Tim Duncan, a power forward, shot in the regular season. Now, in the previously to that, Tony had shot 18.6 points per game on 52% in the regular season. Again, this freedom of movement initiative really opened up for the guards and the point guards. I mean, at one point, Tony Parker led the league in either points per game in the paint or shooting percentage in the paint. That's just how ridiculous it got. And 19.8 points a game on 45.7% shooting through the first 3 rounds of the playoffs. So the guy's field goal percentage improved by grew by 11 in the NBA Finals compared to his last 3 rounds. And the Spurs won 4-0. 110% unacceptable on the part of the Cavs, and certainly 110% unacceptable on the part of the best all-around player in the NBA at the time, LeBron James. Again, the second best all-around player in the league has his field goal percentage dropped by 10 points, and Tony Parker goes from shooting 45.7% the first 3 rounds of the playoffs to 56.8% in the NBA Finals. And the Spurs won 4-0. That's on your dime. That's not on Daniel Gibson. That's not on Drew Gooden. That's not on Andrew Verajao or Anderson Verajao. That's not on Larry Hughes. That's on you. Massive, massive blips on the radar that is LeBron's tarnished legacy. Thank you very much, guys, for sitting through the video. I know that one was fairly lengthy. Of course, the dissection of the 2007 NBA Finals certainly helped that. But again, thank you very much for watching the video. Hit the like button, hit the comment button, let me know what you feel of some of these blips on the radar of LeBron's tarnished legacy. I mean, where do you feel he sits? Do you feel he gets a pass for a lot of these? Do you feel that maybe I've been too harsh? Or do you agree? Do you feel that LeBron needs to be held accountable and that you can't constantly use the argument that he's been the best player in the league for 10 to 15 years, but then also use the excuse of his age for his shortcomings? Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I'll be posting a LeBron legacy video once a week for the next few weeks, just to try and keep the topics rolling. Again, you'll be getting my thoughts on who the MVP still is very shortly, my thoughts on the All-Star game, who my Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie Year, blah, blah, blah will be. That will be all in a video very soon. Come the end of next week, I think I'll post that before the All-Star game. Again, hit me up on Twitter, Justin_G_Bryan, always talking sports, always talking politics and life in general. Head over there, you'll always get links to my videos on there as well. But again, hit the like button on this one, leave a comment, give me some feedback, and subscribe to the channel for more great content. And once again, hit me up on Twitter, Justin_G_Bryan. Thank you very much for watching this video, guys. Again, this has been part 1 of LeBron James's tarnished legacy. See you again for my NBA Player of the Week video coming up at the end of this week, the week February 6th to Feb 12th. And following that, again, my All-Stars, my MVP update. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you later.